Here we are in the rock garden where every rock has its own story. Aho matakuyasin, the story of two rattles. There was a grandfather and grandson at the shopping mall. The grandson saw a beautiful rattle and said, "Grandfather, will you buy that rattle for me?" And the grandfather did buy that rattle for his grandson. And the boy was so happy. He played that rattle all day. And he played it all the next day. And part of the day after that. And then that rattle went into his toy box and went all the way down to the bottom of the toy box. And he did not see it for a long time. There was another grandfather and grandson walking along the path. And the grandfather started to play his own ceremonial rattle. And the grandson was listening closely to the sound of the rattle and the sound of the voice of his grandfather. And he said, "Grandfather, I would like to have a shaker like that also." And the grandfather said, "Well, maybe you should." And it was winter at that time. It was cold, and they did not speak of it again until the spring winds came and the ground began to thaw. And then the grandfather took his grandson down into the root cellar where they had all the seeds for all the plants that they would grow. And the grandfather and grandson looked at the seeds for the gourds. And the grandson picked out the seeds he would choose to plant. And the grandfather put them in a little pouch. And the grandfather showed the grandson where he would plant out on the earth and clear the earth in a way that would respect the earth and respect the seeds. And when it was the right time, the grandfather helped the grandson to plant those seeds with prayers and thanksgiving. He opened up the earth. He thanked the earth for taking care of his seeds. And he planted those seeds just as his grandfather had taught him. He planted those seeds in the soft earth. And as his grandfather taught him, he cared for those plants. As they grew, they sprouted. He was so happy. He said, "Grandfather, come and look at these beautiful plants. They've sprouted." And the grandfather said, "You're doing a fine job." And soon there were gourds growing on the vines of the plants. And then, in the end of summer, after taking care of those plants and gourds all through the summer season, the grandfather and the grandson chose which gourds they would use to make shakers, their own rattles. And they hung up the rattles to dry so the gourds would be ready to be turned into rattles when they dried out properly. And when they were ready to be carved and opened up, they opened up those rattles, and the grandson and the grandfather cleaned out the gourds and brought them out to be ready to be made into shakers. And the grandfather said, "Now go find a cricket." And the grandson said, "A cricket, grandfather?" And the grandfather said, "Yes, a cricket will teach this rattle how to sing." Grandson went and got a cricket, brought it to him in his hands, and said, "Grandfather, it took 2 days to find the cricket, but I found one." And they brought that cricket and put it inside the gourd that they were making a rattle. And the grandfather told his grandson, "That cricket will teach your rattle how to sing." And they left the cricket inside the gourd overnight. And when this morning came, the grandfather and grandson opened it up. There was the cricket. And the grandfather said, "Now take that cricket back to his home," which the boy did, brought it back, and sang a song of thanksgiving to that cricket for teaching his shaker how to sing. The grandfather and the grandson got some very small little stones that they collected that would go well inside the shaker. And they put those little stones inside the shaker, and that shaker started to have its own special sound. Then the grandfather and the grandson, they put together the gourd, and the grandson tied it all together. The grandfather helped him with painting that beautiful shaker, just like the boy wanted. The boy painted his rattle with his own beautiful designs. And the grandfather also taught the boy songs to sing with his beautiful shaker. And finally, the grandfather taught the grandson how to place that shaker on his belt loop. And when he wanted, he could take off that belt and play that rattle, singing his own songs. And one day, that boy was out playing with his shaker, singing it to the sky. And his sister came up and said, I like the sound of that rattle and that beautiful song. I'd like to have a shaker for myself. And the boy said, maybe you should. And the boy taught his sister how to plant the seeds, how to care for the plants, how to grow the gourds, and then how to clean out the gourds, how to bring a cricket in, and how to create a rattle for yourself. This is the story of two shakers.